When you get to Google Classroom, guys, what you should see, okay, is something that looks like this, Properties of Compounds Lab, okay? Down here is the actual lab handout. So it's got everything in it, instructions, okay, all of that kind of stuff. You'll want to have that open while you're working on it as well, okay, but that's not the thing you're handing in to me, okay? To open up the actual lab report, either click up here or click open, okay? Either way, it'll take you to here where it says your work, right? When you click on this, that will open the template up. And that's the thing you're going to work in. That's the thing you're going to submit to me later. Gareth. For anybody? Okay, if it's not working, turn the computer completely off, wait 10 seconds, turn it back on. Are all of those dead? Oh, okay, yeah. So 15, I'm going to hold 15. Yeah. All right, so when you click on this here, guys, okay, it's going to open this up. All right, except yours will say your name up there, right? And you can see it looks just like what we just went through, except everything's basically blank, right? That's where your information needs to go in. Restate the problem in your own words, okay? Explain your choices is written down here, okay, underneath the design part, okay? Hypothesis, if, and then, there to remind you, your hypothesis needs to be if, and then, okay? Procedure, you're going to enter your steps here. That's the thing that's probably going to take the bulk of the time tomorrow in class when you're kind of sitting with your group and deciding what your steps are going to be, okay? And we'll go over what those steps, what those tests should be. You just need to put them into steps, okay? I'll tell you what tests you're going to run. You need to write the explanations and instructions for running them, okay, you and your group. And then you'll have this chart. You'll need to make a chart like this that you can take into the lab, right? So either you print this on the weekend or you just make a hand version of it, a hand-drawn version of it, so that you can record your observations in the lab. Because for obvious reasons, we don't take the Chromebooks into the lab. Okay, so you need to have a paper copy of this in order to do your observations on Monday. Okay, materials are already there. The materials also include the possible identities of all of the unknown materials. All right, so you'll be looking at those. Okay, and then in the analysis, there's only one thing you need to do in the analysis, and that is tell me whether substance A is ionic or molecular and what's its identity. Okay, substance B, was it ionic or molecular, and what was it, right? So essentially you'd be writing in there something like A was ionic and it was ammonium nitrate. Okay, something like that. All right, everyone following on that? Okay, that's in general. Now, specifics. Okay, specifics about this particular report here. Okay, so the problem as I have it written that we are investigating is that we're going to be given a bunch of unknown samples. How are we going to identify them? How are we going to find out which one's which? Okay, so you need to restate that in your own words in the form of a question for the problem. Okay, what we've been talking about the last few days here is that each and every compound has unique physical properties that make it different from every other. Agreed? Okay, is that a premise that we can work on in this lab? Yeah, okay. If every compound has unique physical properties, we can find those properties. And then we could use those properties to do what? Figure out what it is. What did that sound kind of like just now? Kind of like a hypothesis, right? I started out with if, okay? I talked about what I might do, and then what I'd be able to do at the end, okay? So your hypothesis is going to want to work something like that. I'll be a little more specific in a minute here, okay? But that's kind of where we're going, okay? Now, for the design, identifying our manipulated, responding, controlled variables. Well, our experiment, kind of work backwards a little bit here. Our experiment's going to run like this. You're going to have all these unknowns. You're going to put them in a dish, okay? And then we're going to run the same tests on each one, okay? We're going to look at them. And we're going to observe all of the readily observable physical properties and make note of that, like color and texture and all of that kind of stuff. And then we're going to add water to them and see if they dissolve. Then we're going to test their conductivity and see if their solutions that we've created will conduct electricity or not. Okay? And then we're going to test their pH and see if they're acidic or basic or somewhere in the middle. Okay? So what's going to be different every time I run those tests? I'm running the same tests every single time, but every time I run them, what's different? Okay, yes, the results of the test are going to be different every time because every time I run the tests, I'm testing a different substance. Okay, so what am I manipulating here? The stuff I'm testing. Yeah, I'm not trying to trick you. Okay, I'm not trying to trick you. I gave you an answer there. Okay, if you don't write it down, you're crazy. Okay, you need to explain that. I've told you, we're manipulating here the different substances. Okay, and Ariel just pointed out, okay, that every time I run those tests, I'm going to get a different set of results. In other words, everything is going to have different physical properties. It's almost like that's responding to me testing something different every time. This is where the podcast fails because it doesn't get my body language. Okay? All right. Then you need 3 controlled variables. Okay? We've already mentioned one. Okay? Every time I test a new substance, I'm testing it with the same tests. Okay? So you got 1. Come up with 2 more. Okay? 2 more things that will be the same every time you run, every time you have a new substance. Every time you have a new substance, what other things, 2 more of them, are going to be the same every time? Okay? And they can be environmental, okay, or they can be procedural. It's up to you. Okay? You have lots of options here. There are lots of correct answers for the other 2 things. Just make sure that you have an explanation for every variable. Okay? The substances that manipulated variable because. Okay? The physical properties / results are the manipulated variable because. Or sorry, are the responding variable because. Okay? This is a controlled variable because it would have this effect if it wasn't controlled. Okay? Talk about that. Awesome. You could. It'd be like a certain value. You'd have to look it up. Look in there. There's a. You could say that, but you need to explain why that was a controlled variable. What effect would it have if you didn't control it? Yeah. Okay. So that's your design portion. Okay. Then for your hypothesis. Okay. Again, the premise that we're working on here is that all substances have unique physical properties. That's what your if part should probably talk about, if that's true. Okay? Should talk about unique physical properties. Something about that should be in the if part. Okay? The and part, okay, needs to describe the experiment. Maybe talk about the test we're running, okay, the properties we're testing for, okay, something like that. And we'll talk about the rest of it tomorrow, and then you'll have the rest of class to work on it with your group. Okay? All right, please make sure those are completely shut down and put them back on the cart.